is rich.
Sistahship, we got this on a brothership united.
Where my fellas at?
Sistahship, we got this on a brothership united.
Where my fellas at?
Sistahship, we got this on a brothership united. Sistahship, we got this on.
Hello, everyone. This is the Brothaship. This is Darren DJ Johnson. I have been blessed to have two guests on the show this particular Sunday, Stefania Johnson and Terry Pickering. They are going to help me out as some of my guests that are in transit come into the show at a later date. But welcome. This is the third show of the Brothaship. You know, before we get started in the actual subject matter, I just wanted to thank everyone that's been so generous with their time and checking us out, because again, what we try to do is very simple. We want to provide a portal and just a dialogue to provoke thought and have some good information and topics that may help you. They may inform you, but at the end of the day, hopefully you're a little bit more aware of what's going on in the planet that we occupy. So thank you so much. With that said, today we're going to talk about the Chauvin verdict. We're going to actually talk about just crime and punishment in America, because I think that no matter what your political ideology is, you'll have a perspective. Again, as a person that's a professional, I'm not a convicted felon, thank goodness, but I've had my share of interactions with law enforcement, good and not so good. And I'm going to be very candid as I feel comfortable with, and expressing some of those experiences just to provide some perspective. But first, I think let's just go around the horn and find out what we thought about the Derek Chauvin verdict. And for those of you that may have been sleeping or may not be that inclined to look at the news, Derek Chauvin is an ex-cop that stunned the world with a very obscene video where he was seen with his knee on the neck of one George Floyd. A young lady that happened to be a teenager was astute enough to capture it on film, and that actual footage spread across the globe, and it sparked and piqued the Black Lives Matter movement, in addition to a cross-cultural outpouring of outrage in the form of protest across the world. So as a result of that, convict Chauvin, that's what I'll call him affectionately since we're on the airwaves and want to reserve some professionalism. Convict Chauvin was placed on trial. He first among his three cohorts that were also there on the scene, and he was found guilty. Now, based on the guidelines associated with the crimes that he was charged with, second-degree homicide and first-degree homicide, he was looking at a maximum of 30 years. However, upon jury deliberations, he was only given 22.5, if I remember correctly. That was the ultimate sentence that he was given. And that created a lot of backlash, predictably, along racial lines. Obviously, you saw a lot of people of color that were outraged that he didn't get the max. And you had some people that Blue Lives Matter obviously felt that he was innocent, among other things, and was unjustly punished. So I'll stop there and just go around the horn. Stefania, what are your thoughts around the sentence?
Hey everybody, your girl Stefania. So yeah, let's talk about that, because I've got some fire on that, because I'm a little I was taken aback at the fact that he didn't get the 30 years. I feel that he took a life in uniform, and he should have really got the max. To be honest with you, the way I see it, being that he was a man in uniform, a cop, he should have probably gotten more than that. But again, we gotta base it on, you know, what you can get from this. I don't think it's fair enough. I think he should have gotten uniform, the sentence should have been more than anyone else would have. Where I'm at, I don't feel that he got what really he should have deserved. I mean, at the end of the day, you have a man who'll still be able to see his family. And unfortunately, George Floyd's daughter, family, they're not going to be able to ever see him again. So, it's just, do we just take what's given and say it's enough? I say no. I say no, not enough.
Okay. Terry, what say you? How do you feel about the verdict?
In my opinion, I'm satisfied because in most cases, history has shown us that the police officers, even when they've been convicted, they have been given lighter sentences than that. And 22.5 years, 22 and a half years in prison, that's the most time any police officer has been given who has been convicted of killing a Black man. So in that sense, I'm pleased with that. I'll take that. I will take that and run with that. And that's just the way life is. I'm pleased.
Okay.
I'm not gonna argue with that. I'm pleased with that.
And I see where you're coming from, Terry, and I totally get it, because you're right. I mean, it is more than has ever been given, to your point. And again, and I'm just looking at from my perspective, and yeah, we can be satisfied, but I think there's still more to come as it relates to, again, going into the justice system. And how, fair and equitable it really is. And, there's a lot in that space, right, that still needs to be worked out. But 22 and a half years, yes, I agree. It's a lot. You probably wouldn't have got that otherwise. But I still fear there's, this is probably a stepping stone to future opportunities.
Yeah, I think, as far as my perspective is concerned, when I heard the verdict, I can remember I was actually en route somewhere and I was listening to it in the car, and they had a recess right before the sentencing. And they said, we'll be back in 15 minutes. And I was trying to get from A to B. And I was thinking, I said, he's not going to get the max. That's what I was saying intuitively. And to Terry's point, we have to look at history. And I think, when we look at just the onslaught of, the mainstream trying to alter or deflect true history, another story for another time, I think we have to look at it for what it's worth. And I think Brother Terry nailed it. There's never been someone convicted in the state of Minnesota for that amount of time as a punishment. Nowhere in America. Okay,
has
so
anybody been sentenced, a police officer has been sentenced to that much time who has killed a Black man in America.
Right.
Nowhere in America. That's the first.
Now, what's interesting, and let me just intervene because you are correct. I will bring up a Justin Volpe, who was a police officer in New York City that was sentenced for 30 years, but that was an assault, a vicious assault on one Abner Louima. That was during the Giuliani period of time. But to your point, murder seemed to have been a lesser penalty for most of the cases than assault.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to bring that to the total perspective, because I wondered that myself. I said, well, wait a minute. Volpe got 30 years. I mean, he's actually still in prison for that heinous assault. But when we were looking at the time, and let me get back to my story. I'm sorry, I went off track. I didn't know what to expect. But, one of the more perverse aspects of American history that a lot of us carry is we don't expect much. We weren't sure that there was going to be a conviction. I don't know about the rest of everyone, but we still were on the fence, because if we look at Rodney King, I know what my eyes showed me that fateful night with him.
Those were your lying eyes. So
that day when we all sat and waited, I think it was April, for the actual verdict, there was a sigh of relief among everyone, people of color and allies, collectively. So getting back to the sentencing, the 22 and a half I had to look at it this way, and this is why I like us to always chop it up and have the dialogue. Here's the truth. As a police officer, number one, he wasn't going to get the time. But number two, we didn't know of any felony convictions. So typically when you're looking at maximum sentences around anyone, they use kind of a scorecard, if you will, of prior behavior, recommendations from the legal community, and then ultimately the sentencing based on, the judge's perspective. And the judge, quite frankly, he's part of the law enforcement side of it. So to Brother Terry's point, I think 22.5 years was adequate. And then we have to look at it at the base level and some other mitigating factors that may make this right. Number one, he has to do at least 15 years. And I'm sorry, 15 years, unless you don't have any soul, that taking away of freedom is going to be tough. That's number one. 15 years is a long time. He's 45. He's looking at getting out at 60. Number two, he's not going to just be the most welcome individual when he goes into the custody of the state. There are going to be people across prison that want to see him, if you will. So he's going to be in a very precarious situation, and he may be moved. A lot of people don't know that when law enforcement officials are, when rarely held accountable, they have a very precarious and dangerous situation because they can't go into general population. So they're moved a lot of times. So that's
I was actually going to ask that, because do we think that he's really going to be put out there in the general population?
No.
Because as a former cop, killing someone, killing a black man, I mean, it's not going to bode well for him in jail.
Right. So he may, and again, I'm just speaking objectively. If for his best interest, someone's probably looking to get him immediately out of the Minnesota jurisdiction and probably somewhere else. So he'll slip into custody as a prisoner, and he may be in Kansas somewhere. But at the end of the day, this was such a prolific case that everyone's going to know. The jailhouse communication system is such that he can run, but he can't hide.
The reality is, when he get to prison, after he go through the classification stage of his prison stay, when they classify him, he's going to be in protective custody for a little while.
Yeah.
But at some point, they're going to put him in general population at some point, and he is going to link up with, the
Aryans,
the Aryan Nation and whoever else, because to them he's a hero.
Correct.
So they're going to cover him coming and going. He's not going to stay in protective custody, and he's going to link with the Aryan Nation. So he's going to be all right. He'll be all right in jail. They're going to protect him. But I want to add, the legal system isn't finished with him yet.
Correct.
Because the feds hasn't took him to court yet.
Correct.
So it's a high probability, and I think that with Biden being the president, there's a high probability that the feds will also give him some time, and he will be convicted and for the same charges in the federal court system for violating his civil rights and everything else, and he will be giving some more jail time to run consecutive, not concurrent, consecutive to those 22 and a half years he got. So he might end up with 40 years or 30 years, in prison, because that's a high probability. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed on that, because the feds ain't finished with him yet.
Spot on, Terry. That was where I was going to go down as a closing point, because you're right. The federal piece is the next piece. And I know the family was very distraught because he didn't get the max, but we have to put things in perspective. And what I do now want to segue into, because he's gone. Bye, Felicia. We'll see him when we see him. But here's the next question. As it were, do you think that the Chauvin verdict will change policing in the future? So do you think that policemen will be less inclined to brutalize people? Do you think there'll be a backlash as a result of this? Or do you think that over time, we will get better at community relations with respect to how police monitor neighborhoods in America?
Right now, in my opinion, the police are scared to death right now. This case has rattled their cage because one thing for certain, two things for sure. These young liberals in America has spoken. Okay, the Black Lives Matter movement ain't just black folks. You know, it's multicultural and national and has went around the world. So there has been a paradigm shift in regards to what police can get away with now. And not only that, there's been a movement to not indemnify these police officers. In other words, saying that these municipalities won't be able to finance their legal funds anymore. You know, they're even talking about making them have their own insurance, just like how doctors have to have malpractice insurance. They're talking about having police officers have their own insurance, so that way anything that they do, they're going to be held accountable for. You know, so that they can be personally held liable for it. So a lot of police officers are rallying in their boots, and there has been a mass retirement across the country of, unfortunately, these white police officers who have that mindset that they're above the law. You know, they have retired in droves, you know, and even some of my customers, police departments in New Jersey, you know, when I'm in these places, they think I work there because I'm in some of those places so often, you know, and they will speak freely around me, and I'm sitting there air hustling, and they're all afraid because they said that if they have to get insurance to be a police officer, they're gonna leave the job because they know they cannot change who they are in regards on how they deal with people, not just black people, people in general. Because if you are perceived to be poor in America, police treat you differently. It doesn't matter if you black or white. If you poor in America, the police officers are going to treat you in a substandard way. And they're afraid that if they gotta get insurance and don't have insurance, and you know, and you can sue them personally for what they do wrong, they're out.
I think
So
we're talking.
things gonna change.
I think we're talking about the concept of qualified immunity. Is that correct? So
yes.
So essentially, for the audience, what we're saying is that more and more politicians that are trying to get reform, actual reform, are challenging qualified immunity, meaning that if an officer is found guilty of malfeasance, they're liable. A lot of people don't realize that police officers in many municipalities have the shield of qualified immunity so that they don't or aren't held responsible. So if a policeman is found guilty of beating up on you, you can't personally sue him for your injuries. You have to sue the police organization. And that's where the unions and the police benevolent associations get, the PBA as they call it, get involved. And that's why there's been this tremendous back and forth. So I think Brother Terry's hit the nail on the head, because we've got to, in my humble opinion, challenge qualified immunity. Now, a lot of people don't realize that the police in general, a lot of times there tends to be a lot of nepotism. I know a lot of people that are quote unquote on the job, their fathers were even some of their fathers' fathers. So a lot of it's a line of work that, you know, sometimes in some cases can also create an inheritance of bigotry and lack of control in some of our communities. I'll just share something very quickly. I'm a product of Newark, New Jersey, and Newark's known as one of the roughest towns out there. But as a young kid growing up on the South Ward of Newark, New Jersey, we didn't see a lot of policemen killing unarmed African Americans. So when I look at it through that lens, it always surprised me as we've gotten to 2021, how this has proliferated. Now, I'll be very frank. The police in my neighborhood, they walked the beat and they gave you a choice if they caught you. You could either get booked or you could take the ride. If you took the ride, hands were laid on you. I had a friend, he did something. They took him down to Weequahic Park. When he came back, he had speed knots all over his head. But this is the deal. You were given a choice. And when you look at it in retrospect, those officers, they even were very upfront. They said, look, we don't want to mess up your life. So you have to pay the price for breaking the law. And you need to understand that we're here to protect and serve. And if you're out of line, we're going to put you in line. This is actual, the rules of the game as I understood them in the, I'll say the late 70s. That's how it was. These cops, you know, they would lay hands on you, but they were also not going to put you in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, that was a way of community policing that while it may have been draconian, I know a lot of people that actually turned their lives around because they weren't thrown in the system. So, you know, when I hear these arguments about we have to do this, that, and the other to control suspects, I don't believe that necessarily.
Do you think the reason for that, you know, again, and you're talking about 70s, 80s, I mean, most police officers that we know at that point in time, they were a product of that community. Do you think that's the change that has occurred, is that you have police officers that are not a part of the community that's driven a different, I guess, perspective on how they handle individuals?
Absolutely. I think that as a requirement, and this is becoming an agenda item and part of the police reform bills throughout the country, where in order for you to serve and protect in a particular community, you have to be a product of that environment. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the bottom line. It all comes down to how we effectively manage problems. And as a person of color, I know that if you're stopped by a policeman in a routine traffic stop, there's a fundamental difference in how those police create that stop.
Yep, agreed.
In fact, you and I have been in a car and you've seen how that's worked out. Yes. So, you know, the way it works for me, or how my view of the world is that, you know, when we look at solution-oriented approaches, we have to have policemen that respect the community that they're in, because their job is basically to fundamentally fight crime. So they're going to deal with an element that's not necessarily the most honest people or have backgrounds that aren't the most upstanding. But like a teacher, like a bartender, like a psychiatrist, that's the job you choose. And the moment that you think that using force or even deadly force is an effective means of scaring the community, or knowing that you have this qualified immunity so that you're not held accountable, you become an existential threat to that community, in my opinion. Now, I've been stopped by police more than 40 times in my career, my life. And that's a lot. Now, I went to college in the South, so I get it. But sometimes I've even asked why I've been stopped. Now, there's a whole protocol around getting stopped by law enforcement that I suggest and actually talk to young folks about. But to answer your question specifically, Stefania, these people that want to protect and serve have to come into that community with outreach in mind. I've seen in my life experience police come into communities with almost a jackbooted approach to making sure that they have control. And sometimes it's not necessarily about control, it's about empowerment. It's about having the conversation and making sure that expectations are known. Look, my job is simply to maintain law and order, and I want to make sure that you're safe, your mother's safe, I'm safe, and I've not seen that approach in certain communities, having had the opportunity to live across America. And some of the communities of color, there's that fundamental distrust that goes back generations. And we need to change that.
Yeah. Bay. Bay done popped in now.
Hello, people. Can you hear me?
Yes.
What's up,
Can you hear
Bay?
me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah, I'm free. Just my walkthrough on the house. You know, I don't want to interrupt the flow of the show, but I definitely wanted to join. I wanted to, I want to stay a part of this. So I was a little busy. I apologize.
No
That's all right.
problem. Welcome, man. We have Terry Pickering. He graciously joins in and has been providing his perspective. So sit back, enjoy the ride, and pitch in as you feel comfortable. Congratulations on your new home and your
Yes,
new life,
congrats.
and many blessings that are associated with making a change in lifestyle and location.
Thank you very much. It was crazy, man. It's a story. We could do 3 podcasts on my closing.
I'm sure we could.
My closing took 8 hours. 8 hours.
Oh,
Wow.
my God.
So, but go ahead, guys. I don't want to interrupt the flow, guys. Hopefully I can jump in the conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure, Darren, you got a question already, so maybe Bay can add his insights or his thoughts.
Okay. So what was the question? I'm sorry.
Well, we already passed Chauvin, so
Well, actually, we were kind of we started talking about the police, and I think we can save that to the end. I'd like to kind of just make a hard turn and talk about some of the hottest news that we know about, and that's Mr. Bill Cosby. So
ooh.
let's go around the horn. I mean, I was jokingly saying when this first popped out, Free Bill Cosby, I was saying it around 4 years ago when this came up. And before we get into it, let me just make sure that we're all aligned. The views that are going to be expressed from me don't necessarily represent his guilt or innocence. I really don't care. He's not a family member. He's not a personal friend. So I really don't care about what happens to him, but I am going to share a legal perspective that I think that while it may be provocative, it's going to be fundamental to the legal system as we understand it. So Stefania, with you being the only woman on the roster right now, I know that you may have some strong opinions. So let's start with you.
Yeah. So this is outside of just, and your legal perspective or insights, but I mean, to me, he is guilty. He knows what he's done. I mean, are we going to say all 60 women that are out there? I can't say one way or another. I wasn't in the house. I wasn't physically there. I can't speak for what 60 women have said, but I'm going to say this. And I don't want to get into this whole, like the Me Too movement and whatever have you. This is me, Stepfire, coming to you with how I feel about this whole situation. Women were abused, okay? Sexually abused, impacted by someone who we all knew as, Daddy Huxtable. I loved him growing up. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's, I'm disappointed in what he's done. It kind of just, it hurt me because of the way I felt about him. And personally, him being released, I'm not happy with that decision. I feel that there's something else going on as it relates to that. I don't know. I haven't read all the information. All I know is he's free now, and I haven't come to terms as to the reason why he was released. So my opinion is he should have still been locked up. He should never been released, and he still needs to pay for what he's done, period, point blank. That's where I'm at. So I'll leave it to Terry and Bay, because that's my opinion. And since I'm the only female on the panel, that's what I'm going to say.
Can I jump in on that? Can you guys hear me? I'll make sure my connection is good. You got to remember, Steph, that was back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
It was wild as hell. It was wild. They were doing all kinds of craziness, and he's not the only one. So if you're going to crucify him, you have to crucify everybody. You have to go down the list. You can't just crucify him and set him up as an example and say, well, we crucified him and everybody else can get away. That's like, and I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent. And I'm not saying I'm going to bring up R. Kelly. That's not saying R. Kelly is guilty or innocent. But there's a lot of people that have done the same thing that R. Kelly has done, the same thing that Bill Cosby has done, and gotten away with it. But they put them up as an example that we're going to use these Black men and we're going to destroy their legacy and show you we're going to put them up as a crucifix and say that, yeah, we're doing the right thing. Meanwhile, the same people that crucified him and crucified R. Kelly are doing the exact same thing and even worse than what Bill Cosby and R. Kelly have done. So I can't say, I am kind of happy that they let him out because they tried to destroy his legacy like they tried to destroy. R. Kelly guilty or innocent? I don't know. But I'm seeing what they're doing. They did the same thing to Michael Jackson for years and years, and then they try to say he was a pedophile. But who else is doing all of these things? Who else? You're holding these people up. Elvis, look at Elvis. Jerry Lee Lewis. Look at these old heads, and they're icons. They are icons in rock and roll.
I agree with you, babe. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm looking at it from a perspective of, and I get it. I totally understand where you're coming from because they've been used as that platform to say, for accountability, right? And I agree with you. I do understand that. So I don't want it to seem that I'm taking a position because me personally, my only position is I'm always of the opinion wrong is wrong, right is right. And the story. I don't care who you are, what color you are, what, religion or whatever have you. And that's my only perspective on that is that he needs to, just like anybody else. And you're right, there's people that got away with it as well. But, but they should have been held accountable and he should be held accountable as well. And he was already in jail. So yes, he was held accountable. Yes. Were they trying to ruin his legacy? And if had this not happened, the sexual assaults and whatever have you, if it was something else, I'd have been like, you know what, let the man just go. But because that piece of it, to me personally, and again, I'm a woman here on the stage with you guys, right? As a woman, I cannot condone that. I cannot accept it. And for me, it's I don't care what it is. That piece right there for me is a problem. And that's why I feel the way I do.
I'm not saying, he shouldn't be held accountable. Don't get me wrong. But I think if you're going to hold him accountable and you're going to destroy his legacy, you got to go back because you went back 30 years. Well, let's go back 30 years to, I think the guy from Aerosmith has some allegations. There's a lot of people that have allegations against him. So if you're going to go back and you're going to destroy his legacy, destroy everybody else's legacy, because if you're going to go down the line and you're going to go to a top tier celebrity, well, then you might as well get everybody beneath them. And then
what
people
about
that
Donald
are on his
Trump?
level.
We're gonna leave Donald Trump out of that equation.
Oh, look.
Oh yeah, but
Don't get me started on him.
But I'm saying, if you're going to do that, then we need to go down the line and get everybody, because you're destroying Bill Cosby, in my opinion, because he had a positive show out there. So now they can take it off TV. They can get that off TV. Now you can't show little Black kids this and show them that, your mom you can be a doctor. Your wife can be a lawyer. That was a positive show, the Cosby Show. I remember that show. He had Fat Albert. He was on Sesame Street. He did so many positive things, but they wanted to destroy that. So if you're going to destroy him, let's destroy everybody beneath him too. Let's go down the list.
Not to mention that he purchased the rights to Our Gang and the Little Rascals.
Yeah.
And he said that based upon the portrayal of the little Black boys and girls in those comedies, you would never see them again on television.
You would never see them again. You can't even get them on YouTube.
You can't even get them because he took them away.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but what my opinion is, right, wrong, indifferent. I don't think that any man who commits any type of sex crime, no matter when he did it, needs to be held accountable for it. All right. What I don't believe in is double jeopardy,
Mm,
and the law should apply equally to everybody.
mm,
Now, he was cut a crazy Eddie deal by Donald Trump's last attorney, who was the district attorney of Pennsylvania,
right.
Yep.
so he could testify in the civil suit. And they said, if you testify in the civil suit, the state of Pennsylvania will not charge you criminally
Mm,
because you came forward in the civil suit. And he did that.
mm,
You have the he gave away his right to remain silent, so he incriminated himself so he can write the check and give these women a couple dollars so they can
right.
get out of his life.
Mm,
Mhm.
And then the next district attorney came along and used that deposition to charge him and ultimately get a conviction against him.
right.
That's why he's out of jail.
Yeah.
Brother
Yeah,
Terry,
and that's definitely not fair. I mean, that
Yeah.
is double jeopardy, and that's why we have the law against double jeopardy. And they used it against him like a sword. I mean, they cut through him the first time, and they came back double jeopardy and cut him again.
Well-
this is my first time actually interacting with Brother Terry, and he has been on fire in hitting and knowing the pulse. And I'll just say this from my perspective. A lot of us are in prison because we don't know the law. But let me tell you what Bill Cosby knew about the law, and that's why he'll be at the fish fry tomorrow.
That's
To Brother Terry's point, you can't have a civil suit,
Mm-hmm.
settle the civil suit,
Mm-hmm.
pay alleged victims in the civil suit and close it, and then have a politically motivated DA reopen the criminal case, and then have alleged accusers who don't have substantiated claims, only accusers, some outside the statute of limitations of even drawing a complaint, testify against him in the criminal court. And to Brother Terry's point, that put him in legal jeopardy. And that, in and of itself, regardless of what you believe, whether you think he's guilty, God will deal with him in the afterlife. But from a judicial perspective, which very few people of color have the levers to pull, he was able
Exactly.
to convince the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that that was an unjust conviction. So again,
Yeah.
I look at it through that lens. And, the perverse aspect, whatever his guilt or innocence is so many of us has the resources and the legal means, as always has. And I've
It's,
told
it's
people,
kind of like
when you see
when
Exactly.
OJ
exactly,
got
Oh, with
off.
OJ.
exactly.
Yes,
We,
OJ. Yep.
we know OJ did it. And
Mhm. Yes.
and I remember the day when OJ was found not guilty.
Me too. Mhm.
I was at lunch. I was in Chicago. I was at a huge conference. And the funny thing about it, it was me and my ex-wife and maybe another couple was the only people of color there. And they stopped what we were doing to turn the televisions on because the verdict had come in.
I remember that. I remember that.
And-
I remember
and-
that. Time
and
stopped
you know
with that
what?
verdict.
That's right. And when the verdict came in, I jumped up and down. The four of us, we would jump up and down, and everybody in that room looked at us like they wanted to kill us because they couldn't understand that we was elated about OJ getting off.
Mm,
It wasn't so much about his guilt or innocence.
yeah.
It was the fact that the legal system worked for him for the first time. It worked for somebody. You know what I mean? It turned them on their heads because guess what? The man said if it don't fit, you must acquit.
Yeah.
It didn't fit. He created reasonable doubt. You know what I mean? So in hindsight, how our lying eyes told us that Rodney King didn't get his butt kicked. Well, guess what? They lying eyes couldn't believe that OJ got off. Now, there's one other thing I want to add. Going back to this thing here, I'm gonna talk about R. Kelly. R. Kelly's gonna get off, and I'm gonna tell you why.
What?
He's gonna get off. You know why he's gonna get off? The same reason that Bill Cosby got off. Because they're going to create reasonable doubt, and there's going to be some charges that's going to be thrown out because of double jeopardy. A lot of the stuff that they're doing is double jeopardy. It was all political why they charged him the second time, because they did the TV show, whatever it was, Life After R. Kelly, or whatever that thing was, the documentary.
Surviving R. Kelly.
Surviving
R. Kelly. They did that, and a lot of that stuff was already litigated in the first case. You know, so he's gonna get off based upon a lot of that stuff has already been litigated. He was found not guilty, and once you're found not guilty, you can't come back and re-interview the same people and try to get him on the same charges. And these other women that they're talking about, guess what? In Chicago and Atlanta, and forget the southern states, and most of these places, if a girl is a day past her 16th birthday, guess what? She can have sex. If she's a day past her 16th birthday, and most of the states. So therefore, he's straight in 6 o'clock. He's gonna get off. This was the Me Too movement, and surviving R. Kelly is why he's in jail. He's gonna get off. Well, because legally they can't do double jeopardy.
Well, I don't know enough about the case to make an informed decision. From the outside of what I did understand, I'd argue that that's a 50-50 shot. I used to live in Chicago, and when this first happened, I'm not making this up. One of the main strips on the West Side, they were showing the video outside on TV like it was yesterday's news. I mean, everybody saw it. And, you know, again, it goes down to, you know, the OJ, Bill Cosby thing. People wanted to see him get off because it transcended the crime. And that's another story, but it is something that we typically tend to do. And I think it's like, again, I said, it's a perverse statement on how the legal system has treated us holistically, because we can get behind almost anything.
Well, the point being is R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, and O.J. Simpson, they are Black heroes. So guess what? Michael Jackson. We can forgive them for a lot of things that they did. And basically, like Michael Jackson only paid these people off because, one, he had the money, right, and two, this was here. Take this money and go away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let's put this to bed, because it was all about money. Take the money and go. There was no DNA. There was nothing else to say that there was no physical evidence to say that he molested those kids.
Right. I think
about money.
You know, when I think about it, and I'll try to recap it fairly quickly, you know, with every one of these stories, there's a larger story when we talk about the downfall of these alleged heroes. Bill Cosby allegedly was trying to buy NBC. We knew that Michael Jackson had brought the Beatles catalog, and he pissed a lot of people off because he actually bought that catalog for $42 million. And at the time they had put his estate in probation, it was well over $1 billion. A lot of people don't know that. So
that's right.
That was a very
and he outbid Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney.
Yes, that's right.
So a lot of people don't realize that. And I think with not
to mention when he was married to Elvis's daughter,
right,
with no prenup, guess what? He was in line to be in control of the King's publishing.
And that put a lot of, and that was tightly controlled by a gentleman named Colonel Tom Parker, who was a swindler, but I won't get into that. To your point, that also, you know, that made him a magnet for
target.
That made him a magnet for trouble. So
Absolutely.
you're right. So in those three instances, we saw where, again, alleged heroes. Now, again, I think at the end of it, I still am not convinced that R. Kelly was of good repute. And I think, we'll have to wait and see what happens. I mean,
He's
I
not.
really,
And look,
He's
I
not.
knew I knew that when he first hit the scene,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
when he first went on tour, he went on tour with us. I was with Gerald Levert for the Private Line tour, and it was R. Kelly and Public Announcement. They were the opening act for the tour that we were on. And I said it then. I don't know who this guy is. He's gonna be a star. But that was one thing I said. The other thing I said, he likes the young girls.
Yes, he does.
Because that tour was more of a more mature audience, but he would go to the mall to give out tickets.
Mm.
He'd rather go to the mall and get the girls from the mall than these grown women that was coming to see Gerald Levert, who was had an older audience. So
right.
And what you said was actually said in Surviving R. Kelly as well, for those that were actually with him in the mall, because they were picking up young girls to get him these young girls in the mall. So I mean, that just again, that just
I remember when he had his own tour bus, he would take his tour bus and pull up to the mall, go to the mall
Yep.
before the sound check, and they would take people from the mall, put them on his tour bus, and bring them to the sound check, and that was his audience right there.
Right.
I remember that.
Yeah. I mean,
we just didn't know
The
what he was
extent of-
doing.
Right. Right.
We just didn't know, but
Right.
Well, the cat's out the bag now, and
absolutely.
Bad
You know,
cat.
but he'll be dealt with. But I think that was a good conversation because I mean, again, we've seen a pattern where we've had heroes be brought down or be brought down to size through the legal system. So let's make that transition because those are people that have resources to get legal representation. How do you guys feel about the future with the Chauvin case, with the Cosby case? Do you think that over time there's going to be backlash? I think we kind of talked about this narrative where the old guard of policing in many cases are retiring. Some people are not doing the job. Some people are saying, I'm scared to do the job. What's the future of policing to you guys? Before you answer that, I want to add on a piece of it as well. We all know or have experienced or heard of the prison industrial complex. How do you think the future of policing and the prison industrial complex will change in the future? Do you think there'll be a concerted effort to continue this, or will there truly be reform in your opinion?
Well, I'm gonna take that question. And first of all, I apologize for the lighting. I have no control. I'm out here in Puerto Rico, so I apologize for the bad lighting. But I think all it's gonna do is upgrade. It's been upgrading since slavery. So it's done is upgrade it, transform, find new ways to continue the control, find new ways to continue the oppression of Black people. So there's nothing, I really don't think there's anything gonna change. I don't know what's gonna change the way this planet is being run. I have no idea, but policing is just gonna morph into something new all the time. It's just never gonna stop because brothers and sisters were complaining about this in the 90s, in the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, 50s, 40s, slavery. We have been complaining about this and nothing's changed. It's been the same.
So let me jump in there for a second, because I think without going into the total history of how we transformed into, basically always having this law enforcement / control aspect over people of color's dominion, things have changed where we've kind of reconciled the old Rockefeller laws and some of the disparities in sentencing. Where do we as a people manage and navigate more effectively to stay out of that web?
Well,
You follow me?
that's all education, and I think working together, and I think uniting, where we can have our own. We've been saying that since James Baldwin and since Malcolm and since Marcus Garvey, having our own. So we're going to have to do something like that. There's going to have to be a circling of the wagons, because there's no way these people have total control, man. It's worldwide, man. So you're going to have to circle the wagons and do your own thing, in my opinion. That's how I feel.
Well, I can say this much. To institute change, I think that the prison industrial complex is going to change. I think policing is going to change because of these young liberals. The old guard, they're retiring. They're dying off. Even the people that Donald Trump put in place, they still have, hip hop has changed the world, and hip hop has impacted everybody.
Yeah, but Terry, let me interrupt you. I apologize. Hip hop has changed the world, but hip hop has changed. They have taken over hip hop.
I'm about to tell you something, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm about to go right into that, because pop culture shapes and molds our youth. All right. And I tell the story all the time. Many years ago, I used to work for Atlantic Records. Industry decided it was going to go a different direction with Black music division. They no longer wanted groups like Public Enemy and rappers like Common. They didn't want positive music no more. They wanted murder, death, kill. And I remember in this meeting, the guy used a line from Morris Day. He said he wanted to see asses wiggling and titties jiggling. That's the type of music they wanted to put out in the Black music division. And that was only because there was always a message in the music. All right. And that's when I quit my job at Atlantic Records, because I couldn't get behind that. Now, we can't close our ear gate, but we can close our eyes. And our kids listen to the music and they emulate what they see. If you look at all the images they put before our children, they're all drug dealers, they're gangbangers, like you said before. There's no more Cosby shows. There's no more positive Black images. You know what I mean? And guys like 50 Cent ought to be ashamed of themselves, because he's making money, putting out all these shows about drug life and drug dealing and murdering. And you know what? This is what our kids see. And they emulate what they see. They put out music that's murder, death, kill. Our girls, our daughters are taught to this prostitute, whole stripper, $40 culture is okay because Cardi B do it. She's an entertainer. She's getting paid to do this. All right. There's only going to be a handful of people that get paid to do this, but they are the role models of our children, and that pop culture is shaping and molding them. And that's where we have to work to change that mindset in order for this thing to take hold, for us to change totally with what's going to happen with the police in America, the industrial prison complex. We have to fix our kids. We have to change their mindset and erase these images that they are putting in front of our kids. Role models. They see it, because it's not enough men like us out here talking to these kids. How can we have access to these kids? We got to find a way to get access to these young kids and have conversations with them and say, hey, 50 Cent and all of them, Cardi B and all of them, they're entertainers. And like you got to think about generational wealth. You got to think about other things as opposed to one day you want to drive a Bentley and you want to have millions of dollars, you know, and you want to be a drug dealer. You know what? There is no expiration date for the streets. Nobody retires from the streets. We have an expiration date, you know, and that's the message we got to get to our kids. But that's just my opinion. You know, that's me. I'm on my soapbox, so forgive me.
No,
You know,
Terry, I mean, you make
I'm passionate about that.
no, you make great points because I actually happen to agree with you. I think that you're right. The imagery that's out there, that pop culture and what's been put out there to kind of destroy the goodness that we used to know, you know, growing up. And I'm growing up from the 70s, so I'm, you know, 70s child. And the stuff we saw as children has absolutely taken a 360. So I agree with you. I think that, you know, and it's not just even the music, it's the, you know, it's the movies, it's the video games, it's, you know, everything you see is, you know, drugs, you
The
know,
entire pop culture.
everything, the entire pop culture. And it just you know, and that's the scary thing, because this is what these children are growing up seeing and thinking that it's just, you know, it's commonplace. It's you know, it is what it is, right? This is the world we live in, and this is how we evolve and how we grow. So I think to a certain degree, that's going to be the biggest piece of it to affect change. But you know, even from a reform perspective or police reform and community, I think that again, it's definitely going to change. I think it's going to evolve. I think with what we've seen today, with you know what's happened again, even with you know, again, Bill Cosby, what's happened with Chauvin, you know, that's turning the tides. That's showing that there's right now there's some accountability. We're starting
Absolutely.
to see a change.
Absolutely.
And to your point, there is a movement that is so strong that if they stick together and continue to stick together, they will turn that, you know, it will move the pendulum. So it's just keeping the momentum instead of kind of falling back and saying, okay, we got to win, but now we're just gonna, you know, we're satisfied and we're just gonna take a step back. We got to keep moving forward. That's what's gonna
Well,
change.
it's a paradigm shift. It's going to take a paradigm shift, and everybody got to just settle in, tighten their bootstraps, you know, and just go with the wave. You know, you Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
We got to thank God for all the little battles, all the little wins that we get, the little blessings, and you know, we have to now work on the problems because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden can't fix what's wrong in our communities. We got to fix that. We got to fix that. You know, they can change some laws that make it a little easier, but we still have to fix it. We got to get to those people, you know, the Tyler Perry's. I salute him because he put out good movies, but we got to get to the 50 Centses and the Cardi B's and all of them who have influence over our children. We got to get to these people and say, hey, we got to get back to putting the message in our music and putting out good roles. Because one thing for certain, two things for sure, when you look at the TV commercials that they're showing right now, right? I have rarely come across Black women and the way that they portray them on these TV commercials. So, you know, with the head bobbing and the finger pointing and all that. Where did they get that from? I don't know women like that. You know, that was just a image that they put forth. But if you tell a lie long enough, it becomes the truth. You know, so I talked about times 10. You know, unfortunately, with little Black boys and girls, everything we do is times 10. You know, they started wearing eyelashes, right? The little Black girls, instead of them having a half an inch or a quarter of an inch, they go 3 inches, 4 inches. You know what I mean? They're gonna do it times 10. You know what I mean? And just like the boys, the pants was sagging a little bit. Now they they got the belt underneath their behind, times 10. Why? You know, it get worse and worse. But we have to try to reach these people, and we have to reach them by the people who put them in that position. We have to petition these entertainers who get paid millions of dollars to help corrupt our children, because these people in these boardrooms, they don't care.
Yeah, but Terry, let me interrupt you there, because you're saying to reach them through 50 Cent's Cardi B, you use as an example, Meg Thee Stallion, all of these people making money, but we don't have obviously they're worshiping the money. So they're going to go where the money is. That's their worship. And that's where I was making a point of saying, like, we have to consolidate our own and circle our wagons. And if that's what you want to do, because some people you got to just let go. Some people you just got to say, yo, you got to do what you got to do. But, if we can just get 10% of our people just to change their mindset. And again, guys, I apologize for all the background noise. I totally apologize. I have no control over that. But we have to get our people to consolidate and to pull together. We don't have no control over the entertainment right now at this aspect, because we don't have that type of money. And there's going to be people that are going to gravitate towards that money. I understand what you're saying, like when you say you watch TV commercials and you see, and I've never seen, I don't be around, I'm not around and the attitude and the size. I don't know where they see this. I've been on this planet 57 years, and no woman in my family act like that.
No,
I mean,
no, me neither.
I don't, I have my aunt and uncle have been together 50-something years. My mom and my stepfather have been together almost 40 years. I don't know where they see this from, but that's what they want to portray. But we have to consolidate and make our own platform, do our own thing, like we're doing right here. We're putting this little message out. We don't know who this is going to reach. This is what Darren has told me one time when I didn't want to be on the show, because one of our brothers was an officer, and I was like, yo, I don't want to be on the show. Darren said to me, babe, you never know what you might say to this man, or what you might say, what seed you might plant to change his perspective on the whole thing. So what we're doing right here is just sending out a little seed and saying, well, there's another way. But we can't change these people that 50 Cent, Cardi B, we ain't never gonna touch them, because they're addicted to the money. The money got them,
Yeah,
And
but I agree, they're addicted to the money, but think about where the money's coming from too. It's all the people that are buying their records and listening to them on the radio and giving them the platform. This is exactly what the problem is. And I think Terry might have been alluding to that, is that, we're giving people the platform to perpetuate and continue that messaging, right? Continue that vision, or that view of people just from the entertainment world. And although they might have money from these record companies or whatever have you, and people investing, there's also the bottom up approach of the people that are feeding the money into those record companies and feeding money into the artists. And that has to come from us. We got power in that as well as a people.
Absolutely.
No, I understand that step 110%. It's only demand. It's supply and demand. And if they supply something and you go get it, you're the one that's taking it. But you got to remember that they're coming at us every angle. When a baby is born, and they pull that baby out and they put that baby in a nursery, they got a TV up on that wall, and they start that mental conditioning right there with that TV up on the wall. You might not think so, but that TV there on the wall is conditioning that baby right from the womb.
Mm.
And that's what we're battling right now.
That's true.
These people have been at this game, and they refined this game so well that you almost have to disconnect.
Yeah.
Disconnect.
Yeah.
To get away from it, so you can say, to clear your head, so you can readjust or reach Zion. Like in the Matrix, you got to disconnect so you can reach Zion, because you can't do it, because they're hitting you at every angle. Advertisement, music, As soon as you walk outside, there's billboards, there's everything. They're conditioning. When you go to school, all that is programming you to be in this society. That's all that's doing. It's all programming. They condition you to get up, to go to school at this time, to eat lunch at this time, to leave at this time. That's all conditioning you to be a part of the machine.
Well,
You know, so that's what
you know
have
what
to
I
do.
learned this weekend? A brother, my man Ugg came up and he brought out a valid point. He said that we all walk around with the mark of the beast in our hand every day. And I looked at him, I said, what are you talking about? He said that iPhone, that cell phone in your hand
Oh, the cell phone.
is the mark of the beast. He said, now that phone right there, everything we do, that phone controls us. The phone even tell us now how long we have, how much activity we have with our phones now.
Yeah.
All right. Our internet search patterns are tracked. Our websites that we go to, everything that we do is tracked on this phone. So the programming is already done, and we can't live without this phone. Look at us. I'm holding my phone right now, talking to y'all on Zoom.
But you know what?
Hey, Terry.
All that is for a reason. I mean, it's all algorithms, analytics, things of that nature to give you
Absolutely.
more of what you're looking for. Really, that's what it is.
Now,
It's all demand based
let
on
me
how to get it
interrupt.
to you faster.
It's gotten so bad. It's gotten so bad that I haven't even spoke about something. I thought about something, and it popped up on my TV, on my computer,
yeah.
my feed.
Oh yeah.
That's scary. That's scary. Yo, and how does that happen? How does that happen? Does anybody ever sit down and think like, wait, I just thought about that.
It's called suggestive marketing, and it's a function of AI. So it's a sophisticated algorithm that basically takes a look at what you search. So you really would have to deconstruct it. Many times you might even go on the internet and look at, say, a stereo or brand. But what happens is it takes the computer, that algorithm takes it and automatically just goes through at speeds that we can't even compute and comes up with something very close to it. And that's why you'll see it go on your Facebook page. A lot of times, if you don't have the settings of your computer set up, your mic is on and it's actually even recording that information and spitting it out in the form
mic's always on.
As an ad. So those are just things, but we said a lot, and I just want to kind of put things in perspective with something that Bay said and something that Terry said, and even something that Stefania said. For years, since the inception of America, there's always been distractions for people that have been in the struggle. Okay, so when I say that, when you said that 10% piece, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote The Souls of Black Folks, and what his concept was that for at least African Americans, only 10%, the talent intent he called it, would only be successful because of the condition at that time. What I'm submitting to you guys is that may still be true today in 2021. It's just that the circumstances and conditions are different. Some people are fine with just surviving. They really are. I mean, when you think about it, some people are, and I used to run a large division in a company. And you know what? People that were happy with where they were as a person that's managing and controlling a group, that's what you want. So I submit to you that there are a lot of people that are just happy with where they are. You leave them alone, they'll do whatever. Now, a lot of us are hungry. That's why we're taking the time out of our busy schedule to try to bring something together so that we can build. And that's what scares the status quo. And then when you add the collective power of people that have been oppressed over a period of time, that scares people. Think about CRT, critical race theory. Now, all of a sudden, people are upset about how other people feel about talking about the real history in America. Yet no one had a problem telling a group or class of people that they were inferior, since we were able to legally read, write, and produce goods and services for a profit and participate in the capitalist system. So therein is the hypocrisy. So I say that to say, this is just a different game. You know, when we were talking about images, I grew up in Newark. I saw and was exposed to things I probably shouldn't have been seeing at a young age. And, you know, in some instances, I even tried to replicate that because I was foolish. But here's where I'm tying it together. And this is what Brother Terry, and I think even we were all saying, we have to come together for the common good. And the proliferation of all these negative images. We were talking about little Nas's, and I won't even go there because I didn't see what happened on the BET show. I just happened to see an image where he was in a compromising position with the devil. And I said to myself, what is this? You know, and I'm a grown man. So, you know, I'm comfortable with who and what I am. So at the end of the day, it wasn't so much that. I'm just looked at it and said, if I was 12, if I was 13, how would I process that image? You know?
That's right. Well, that goes back to what I said.
Exactly.
Shaping the minds. But you know what? Let me tell you something, bro. I wish I had the opportunity to have the upbringing that you had, because you know what? I grew up sheltered. I grew up sitting on the damn step, watching life go by. You know what I mean? I went only with the private school. All right. I went to Woodmere Academy on Long Island, and I had a totally different upbringing. All right. So I'm a late bloomer when it comes to the ills of the inner city. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I heard about a lot of stuff, but I didn't see it because my father and my grandmother had another plan for me. So growing up as a kid in Harlem on 146th Street between Amsterdam and Convent, I saw a whole lot of activity going on with the drug stuff and everything, but I didn't understand it because I couldn't mingle with the local people because they kept me busy.
Well, let me stop you there, brother.
You know,
I went to Seton Hall Prep, and my
music
dad.
lessons and
No, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you. I had the best of both worlds because that was the day. But when I came back home in that preppy outfit, the blazer and the tie, people in Newark was like, "You soft." So
yeah,
it
that
was
was me.
more often than not, I had to show that I wasn't. So I just wanted to make sure you that was my well-roundedness. So I had the same opportunities and was sheltered. But what was interesting was that it wasn't necessarily sheltered because in that particularly exclusive school, they didn't want us. So we had to be on it was a razor. Because
yeah, we was affirmative action. We just didn't know it.
Exactly.
You know?
So no, but to your point, you know, it is true. And I think when you look at that, it's that melding of both, I'll say the quote unquote street that gives you survival skills. I know that Bay is from Yonkers. You know, Yonkers has changed a lot. I had some friends that I worked with in the corporate world. You know, we were the same age and we started sharing. We all had the same experience. Some of us, most of our parents wanted us to be sheltered. And I'm glad you brought that, because while my old man, he was an OG. He was an educator and feared in the streets.
Well, let me ask you, did you and Bay, were you able to recognize danger at a young age?
Absolutely.
Because I could recognize danger.
Absolutely. I think that's inherent in, you know, any kid that lives in the city. See, because you got to remember our age is different. And I want to delve, and I'm glad you brought that up. It's a generational difference. Growing up in the 70s and 80s had segregated communities where, at least in Newark, people were finally starting to sell their homes to the folks that were leaving vis-a-vis white flight. So you had the same class of people if they could scrape up that down payment. So those neighborhoods, while they were essentially exclusively all people of color, they still had the same mindset. But when we start talking the late 70s and the early 80s, when the social ills that were engineered to come into our communities, i.e. powder and then crack cocaine, that's when things started to disintegrate. And that's when people started embracing imagery of becoming materialistic. You know, my neighborhood went from everybody or all of the parents working to some people, you know, eventually moving. They saw the signs. Those were the super protective parents that said, we gotta go. You know, my dad was the type of dude, he was like Teddy Pendergrass. You can run, but you can't hide. We're staying here, brother. And nobody's gonna mess with you because that's who we are. And that was his MO.
My dad, we moved from Harlem to Queens.
Okay, say right. Where? Jamaica, Hollis, St.
Yeah.
Albans. Okay,
Yeah,
see?
yeah.
So some of them same guys that I went to college with, when we landed where we did, we go, where you from? And I go, you know, I'm from North. I'm on the south side, South Water North. They'd be like, yeah, I'm from Hollis. And I didn't know that until Run DMC came out with Hollis and Christmas. I didn't know what that neighborhood was about. So it was until Alpo and them came or whatever. But it's the same thing. And I'm saying that to say that we have an opportunity, and I think you alluded to it in Bay, we have to somehow take some of those learnings, whether it was sweet or sour, good and bad, and make sure that people know you don't have to be, you know, a nerd to get ahead, or you don't have to buy into the narratives, because I've been called a lot of things, but I knew that I had a plan. You knew that you had a plan. There were expectations that were set up that were non-negotiable.
Hey,
you know?
You know, it's ironic. You talk about being called the nerd. Oh my God. Would you believe the first time I went to public school, I went to public school for my senior year in high school, right?
Yeah.
I made the mistake of going there the first day. I had a damn pocket protector.
Oh my God.
Coming from a private school, I had all the private school stuff.
Yep.
I had an attaché case and books.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh my God, did they clown me?
Well, I got.
Hey, no, I'm not hating on anybody with pocket protectors or attaché cases for all our audience members out there. Just saying.
Well, here's
All
the crazy thing. I went to private school very young, and then in the 3rd grade, I went to public school. I had a suit coat on, shoes, and an attaché case going to 3rd grade. That didn't work out well for me. I got into a fight the first day, and then when I ran, the high school was next to the public school, and my brother's older than me, so some of his friends saw this and told my dad, and he said, look, if I ever hear you run from anybody, I was like, but they're bigger than me. He said, you know what an equalizer is? I was like, no. He said, stick, bat, rock. He says, I don't want to see. He goes, because, you know, it's the same thing. But what's so interesting is that we got these same stories to show. And I want to get back into how that experience in urban areas or even the suburbs manifest themselves in the choices that we have to make. Because when I was about 12 or 13 in those environments, that's when some of my friends was like, hey, you know what? We're going to go and break in and do these things. And we're all faced with choices. We all seem to be in that same age range. And there comes that dichotomy where our thoughts and our ideas and our morals that are instilled by our parents get tested. I knew that if I got caught in a stolen car, somebody was going to come get me, but I probably needed to go to the youth house that night because the expectations that were set on me were such that there was going to be some kicking. And I don't mean bass. I'm talking about. But you know,
and these conversations right here is why me and Ron Yates talk about all the time. We have to have outreach to young Black men and share these stories because, you know, Tiffany, I see you writing stuff and you laugh and you clowning me and whatnot, but that's okay. But it's some young men out there that's just like me growing up, you know, who have peer pressure. I had peer pressure when I got to high school. You know, everybody clowned me, so I had to get some money. And I had one friend who said, "Yo, you can come up with $500." I said, "Yeah." He took me shopping. So all that private school stuff you wear, I'm gonna take you and I'm gonna get you fresh. He dressed me so I can fit in, and they still clown me because I went to class. I still had books. They took me and said, "Hey, give me these books. Put them in the locker." I said, "What about my class?" "Don't worry about it. You don't need the books. Put them in the class." they had to teach me how to be a public school kid, because public school kids, they didn't go to class with books. And matter of fact, they didn't go to school, they went to lunch. That's what I keep with that term. Like, how y'all in the lunchroom for 4 periods? Y'all don't go to class, they go to lunch, you know? So there was a lot of peer pressure on me. You know, I even got bullied, believe it or not. I even got bullied. And like you just said, I had to go to my brother. And I told my brother what was going on, because whenever I had an issue, I just go get my brother, my older brother, and my cousin, and they would come, you know, take care of everything. In fact, one of Tiffany's friends smacked me around one time in Harlem, you know, and I went up the hill and got my brother and my cousin, and they came down there and straightened them out, you know, because I didn't fight, you know. But in high school, I told my brother about the bullying going on, to come up here and take care of this dude for me. My brother said, you know what? I could come up there and deal with this for you. He said, but if I deal with it, ain't gonna stop the bullying.
Right.
I'm gonna go up there and kick his behind for bothering my little brother, but that ain't gonna solve your problem. You know what he gave me? He gave me a slapjack. He said, take
I
the
know what
slapjack.
that is.
He said, take this. He said, as soon as you see the dude, pull a slapjack out. He said, as soon as he say something to you, start slapping him upside his head and don't stop until he drop or he run. And you know what? The very next day, I had that slapjack, and my first fight I ever had was as a senior in high school, and I slapped up the bully with a slapjack. You know what I mean?
And he left you alone?
Left me alone.
There you go.
And look, the whole school became my friend then. You know, I got friends then because they realized the nerdy kid with the pocket protector, you know, he ain't scared, you know. But these are the things that we got to talk about with these kids, man. You know what I mean? We have to reach out to the kids. We have to do reach out. You know, we have to take a show like this and put it in platforms and groups where it is young people. You know what I mean? Because most people in our groups are our age, and they're gonna look at this show, and they're gonna compare notes, and they can appreciate it. But those kids that's young adults and teenagers, we got to get this show in front of them too.
Okay. And what I want to do, because we have a little bit of time left, and I want to tie a bow neatly around this whole great conversation that we had. And with that, I want to go around the horn with this question. With all of the strides that have gone forward, we've done a lot of good things, and we shared how we've overcome in between the socioeconomic classes. Why do you think the justice system still seems to be weaponized against Black America, and what can we collectively do to change that? And that's around the horn for everyone.
Can I go first?
Absolutely.
As
Oh, hey.
Black people, they know can you hear me?
You were freezing up a little bit.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah,
I can hear you.
All right.
Stay in that spot.
That was because, so the reason we've done is because no attention. They know that they stolen from us throughout history, so they got to keep you under control. We are like the proverbial.
Oh, Bay, you got to get in a better spot.
Yeah, I think you got to get in a better spot. I want to be conscious of time. Stefania, what is your perspective?
he got knocked off. You know, again, it goes back to policies and laws that are set up that way, and that's got to be changed. You know, again, also just the old guard, the views, and
You frozen over here
again,
on my end.
he's back. There's still that element of racism that's still out there. There's a lot that's got to change, but it's got to change from the people side. It's got to change from the law side. So we got to get to these people and make change. I mean, it's got to happen. And it goes back to what Terry and I had been talking about earlier. So to me, that's where it goes.
All right, let's try you again, Bay.
Okay, I'm in the front of the house now, but we have traffic. So basically we are, they know our potential. They know what we're capable of. They've stolen from us for since we've been on this planet, or since they've come on this planet. You know, so they got to keep that lion under control. They got to keep that circus elephant under control. So basically, they got to have that army, that mechanized army to keep us all under control, because it's they know the potential. They know the absolute potential of us. And that's what I'm starting to realize, because I used to sit down and say, well, what is it about us that they just got to keep us under their thumb? I just could not figure it out. And as I started to research, and I asked my ancestors to say, what is it? Just teach me something, show me what's going on. And I've come to that point right now. Maybe a month from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, I'll have a different answer. But I feel, I'm sorry about the parakeets.
It's okay. I love parakeets.
It's actually coquis. It's actually the frogs out here. It's actually frogs.
Oh, the frogs?
Yeah, that's the coquille frogs.
Yeah, coquis. It's actually them just keeping us under control because they know the potential in a short answer. I apologize for dragging on, but that's what it is.
Okay. Brother Terry.
Well, I can say this here. It's a lot, it has a lot to do with fear. If you go back 150 years, you know, we're not that far removed from slavery. Let's be clear. All right. And when we left the plantation, most of us couldn't read or write. And we spoke eepa deepa, oopa doopa, umpa dumpa, right? We didn't speak well either. Well, look at the accomplishments that we made from slavery to Black Wall Street. All right. That's enough to fear in itself. And the reason why the civil rights movement was started, it wasn't about civil rights. It was about not creating two Americas. Because separation was good, in my opinion. Segregation was bad. Because civil rights was needed to, you know, not create two Americas. So I'm saying that fear is what it's all about, because we have accomplished too much too fast. And, you know, them 7.5 ounces of brain does wonders. It's all fear.
You know what? And Terry, it's not even the 7.5 ounces of brain. It's that melanin in you, man. Melanin is all over this planet, man. It's melanin, man.
The makers, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father of the universe. You know what it is.
Well, I think in the end, you know, we have made great strides forward. And I think, you know, this is a very dicey, controversial subject that we could probably even talk in another forum, because you have people that will question, well, how do you say we gauge project when you have this? And people throw stats out. And I think Brother Terry brought it from the perspective coming here and being subjugated to the ills that no one else has done and endured, for that matter. A lot of people don't realize that African Americans weren't the first chattel slavery experiments. Initially, It was the Native American, but they weren't able to survive the environment and the torturous conditions. We did that. So, you know, when we go and we migrate from there, and like you said, in virtually 100 years, that separation, and I've always said that on a political scale, that was good, because when you couldn't go across the train tracks and that was a life or death decision, you put all of that energy in the community, because you knew that that was where you were safe. You knew that that's where your livelihood depended on. And when we finally said, well, wait a minute, you know, there was that collective power to just terrorize. That's where, when you focus and study on what Reconstruction was really about, It was reconstruction for America at the expense of the destruction of what was built in that 20 to 30 year period. That's a historic fact. So now
Absolutely.
where we are today, when we look at 2021 in the new century, a lot of us are doing great. You know what? The home ownership rate may not be the same as it was way back when. Most people are younger. They may not want to buy a home. I own a few. That's not for everybody, you know, but where we need to focus on is the net worth. And that's where, tying this all together, we do have to, as responsible adults that have done something positive, create that positive spark in our youth. You know, I like to end shows with, we can talk about all of the ills and the problems of the world, but I also like to conclude it with what we can do about it. With everything that's going on today, when it comes to police reform, when it comes to the inequities that we face as individuals, we can use a 5 calls app and get involved with our council people, our congressmen. A lot of people don't realize the power of just saying, hey, you represent me, I pay taxes, I want you to do this. That's why this, you know, George Floyd Act should already have been in the books, because if enough of us spend the time, rather than, like you said, watching an award show, but using that phone, that's the mark of the beast, and using that 5 calls app to say, hey, I want to see change. You know, people are using these algorithms to determine how to suppress our votes just as well to how to get us out. When they start seeing these blocks of what we need to do collectively, we have a voice. You know, the other thing we can do is mentor. All of us do some type of social work. And you know what? You can get into a class of 32 young kids and half of them may not care. But if you get to 1 or 2 of them that change the paradigm, that make them believe that they can be somebody, because a lot of that, quite honestly, we don't have in our homes. We just shared stories anecdotally about somebody that gave a damn, that even put us in an, I'll say, an adversarial environment to achieve. Well, some of these folks don't have that. And that's neither here nor there. And if you subscribe to spirituality, am I brother's keeper? Yes, I am. Because if you have something, you have a responsibility to give it. If it's sanity, if it's knowledge, if it's wisdom, if it's discipline, you can't show somebody that, but you can model that when they look at what you've achieved. If they're all about materialism and they see how you're living, that may be something that they have the courage to ask, or you may ask them, hey, you know, I would always see people have things and I was not shy to say, how'd you get that? And ultimately, when I was young like that and I saw people with material things, they would say, I worked hard for it. Simple. You know, and somehow we've got to get that, and we got to be honest with each other too, because a lot of us tend to want the easy way out. Nothing is free, especially in the environment we live in today. And as long as you accept that, you don't have to like it. I always say you don't have to like the realities that we face as a people in this country. You don't have to like it, but you have to acknowledge it. Because if you acknowledge it, you'll be more inclined to make a move in a positive way. Because like you said, the dope game is dead. I tell these young folks, the dope game been dead for a long time. Money can be traced. You know why? When they started making changes to money, the funny thing, you know, if it circulates, they know where it is, in which neighborhood, where it goes in, where it goes out, by a serial number, who has it, who doesn't have it. You know, from the RICO laws, you can't put too much of it in the bank. So it's all a control game, as Bay said. So I think what we have to do is teach the youth the imbalances of the justice system, but more importantly, how to navigate through it and make better choices so that they can be successful. I really enjoyed this conversation with you guys, and I hope that when we get together the next time, Brother Terry, I can come on your show, or you can come back again and add some of your expertise. Stefania, thank you for joining us and kind of filling in a little bit and adding some commentary.
I want to thank you guys, because honestly, it was very insightful for me. I thank you guys for sharing your experiences, because again, it taught me some things that, you know, I didn't know based on how you guys feel, you know, so I appreciate it. It's always good to have diverse thoughts and opinions, and even understanding, kind of how, how life was and how life treats everybody. So I appreciate it.
Okay, great. We always are sticklers for time. So thank you guys, and we're out of here.
All right, y'all.
Take care.
We'll do it again. All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
We got this on a Brothaship United.
Where my fellas at?
Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United.
Where my fellas at?
Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United. Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United.
I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get Jews for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership. Okay. I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get Jews for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership.
It's substance, bro, you know we on a mission, let's roll. Yeah. Hop up on the Sistahship show, teach us everything you know. Come on. So we help each other grow. That's how our communities blow.
Yo, what's up? You got a sec? I need to build for a minute.
What's up?
Matter of fact, you can chill for a minute.
Okay.
I need a platform where we could talk about some other shit. Get Jews for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership.
Get it right, this real life, we tired of struggling. Airtight on this shot, no more dysfunctioning. We reeling in the sunken and we bringing in our brother in the battles that you face and be a cannon without comforting.
No disrespect to my sisters at all, but it's the barbershop talk. Talk to kid at the ball. I'm talking waves and just a little hustle to get paid, and just a little game to get laid, and the importance of my credit, stock and hip hop education. Now I'm better. Listen, I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get Jews for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership. Hey, hey, let's go. Hey, hey, it's rich.
Yeah, we on a Brothaship. Come with us, we on a Brothaship. Yeah, we on a Brothaship. Roll with us, we on a Brothaship.
Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United. Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United. Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United. Sistahship, we got this on a Brothaship United.
I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get Jews for some other men. I'm looking for a brothership. I need a place where I can talk about some other shit. Get